This is Nadir Shah in Chicago, and you are watching my channel, Knowledge for Quality of Life. Friends, last week I looked at it, the Apoe genotype, and today we are going to talk a little bit on the same area, but with the twist a little bit, because it is a building block of our genome system. And it's very critical. The more I look into it over the last few years, I've been learning more and more and understanding close to that how our health works actually. When we talk about healthcare or quality of life, sometimes we think that, good health is by just fortuity. It's not like that. Just like anything else in life, it requires certain planning. So if somebody wants to be an educated, with a degree, diploma at whatever level, whatever field that person wants to go in, he or she has to spend certain number of years and go through schooling and get properly educated and, then practice that profession. So it requires certain plannings. It requires certain protocol. Same thing, somebody wants to retire at the age of 55 or 60, and, the person needs to start planning way ahead so that, he has enough number of years to accumulate that much so that he or she can live comfortably in the retirement years without going through much trouble. Because one thing is certain that, we are going to age, and we have to think about it that, the life is in such a way that science is progressing and keeping people longer and longer. Not necessarily that, people are remaining healthier. So there's a big question, because I see all around ourselves in where we are living that, long life is there, lifespan is increasing, but more and more assisted living centers, more and more nursing homes are getting filled, and people are living with chronic diseases. Now, I'm not saying that there are certain godly test that which comes on an individual, but mostly when I observed over the years, I'm a very key observer, and when I see around myself, and you will vouch for it, that most of the things which we do to our health is by ourselves. The type of lifestyle that we are leading, the type of foods we are eating, the type of diet we are adapting. There's a huge disparity between, in American diet and in European diet, or in diet of the people who are living longer, particularly in blue zones. So if you are interested, I would say strongly recommend that Blue Zone documentary on Netflix. Watch it and learn some things from it, because I've been to 2 blue zones in the past, and hopefully next year I'm planning a trip to the 3rd blue zone next year. Today I want to bring something that we have heard over and over, from many experts around us, that we should be eating high fat diet, or somebody says that we should be eating high carb diet, means avoid fat completely, because it impedes the cholesterol, because it just increases your cholesterol, and it just gives you a chance of having a heart attack, and it increases the risk of Alzheimer's. Many things people say, and I've been in the same boat about 7-8 years ago, and when I took this journey in 2015, try to understand myself that what is the science behind it, what it is actually, and I try to take a deep dive, and still I'm learning. It hasn't stopped by any means. So I found out many things which were shocking for me, that how body works. Sometimes we take things granted, whatever it's been given to us by our healthcare professional, because we are just like a clean slate. A person can write whatever the person wants. We don't have enough understanding. We don't have knowledge so that, we can have a critical dialogue between our healthcare professional and ourselves. So same thing, when I mentioned last time, in few vlogs, I have introduced you Apoe genotype, this concept which I learned over the years. So I looked at it over the years that, how this Apoe genotype plays a role in fat metabolism or cholesterol metabolism. So Apoe genotype is a genotype which produces a certain type of protein in our blood, which helps in metabolizing the fats and cholesterol mechanism. So basically, it's a building block. So it means that, it affects every one of us in our cholesterol mechanism. So somebody who says that, one should be eating keto diet, it's good for you. Well, yes and no, because, you have to think about it, that what type of genotype one is carrying. Because, if the genotype is certain, which is not conducive to the fat and cholesterol, dietary cholesterol or saturated fat, it's not good, because what's going to happen, how things are going to go. Because I've seen the literature that, people, when they go on keto diet, their cholesterol goes through the roof. Then you have to look at, what type of genotype you are. Are you supposed to take that kind of a diet? Is it conducive for your genotype? So Apoe genotype actually determines that, what type of diet one should be consuming. And you have to conform your diet around that genotype, because, we are all unique. Remember that nature has designed us, wired us very uniquely, all one of us. Individually, we have to dial in to our body. We have to understand who we are, from the genotype, from the health perspective, that, we are all individual. So whatever applies to me may not apply to my wife or may not apply to my son. To some extent, if I carry the same trait of genotype, yes, they may share the same trait, but we have each and every individual metabolizes many things differently. So we have to dial in to our body to understand what is it. So now, last time I said that, we are basically three alleles: Apoe2, Apoe3, and allele 4. And then we have a combination. So basically, we got one SNP from mom and one SNP from dad. One allele we got from mom, one allele we got from dad. So, like, for instance, I have 3-3. I'm 3-3. So the three main alleles are 2, 3, 4. Then you have a further combination like 2-2, 2-3, 2-4, 3-3, and 3-4, and 4-4. So 2-2, 2-3, 2-4, 3-3, 3-4, and 4-4. So now these 6 combinations, so entire population on the planet have one of the 6 genotype. Okay, so you got to know your genotype before you can, really dive into your body and understand that, how things are going to work for individual. Everything, not only fat wise, are you supposed to eat, decent amount of carb? Then, there is another equation which comes into play that, how to manage the insulin sensitivity. I'm not going to talk today the insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance today. I'm going to be, hopefully next vlog, I'm going to keep it separate. And then we are going to tie these two together to understand that, how things work. So these 6 combinations, so Apoe2 folks, they metabolize the dietary cholesterol very slow. You remember that when I talked about vitamin K2 clearance is very slow in 2 folks, Apoe2 folks, right? Because remember that vitamin K2 is a fat-soluble vitamin. So if they dissolve, they metabolize fat slowly, of course, they are going to clear vitamin K2 slowly as well. So you see how this dot are getting connected? So it means that, dietary cholesterol is metabolized very slowly amongst Apoe2 folks, okay? It's typical, dietary cholesterol metabolism is typical for Apoe3 types. Apoe4 types, they metabolize cholesterol very fast. And when they metabolize very fast, they tend to have higher cholesterol. Now, you see that, when they have a higher cholesterol and the Alzheimer's and dementia concept, the risk-wise, is very much associated strongly with 4 type. There's a reason for it because, that cholesterol builds plaque in the brain. But there is a mitigation for it. There's another side of the story that, folks who are Apoe4, they should stay away from saturated fat. They should stay away from, too much dietary cholesterol. They should limit their dietary cholesterol or saturated fat, but they thrive on omega-3 fatty acids. So folks who are, 3-4 or 4-4 carry at least one copy of 4, they're very, perform excellent on omega-3 fatty acids. Means they should be consuming more fish items like wild-caught salmon, mackerel, sardines, all these fish items, omega-3. Or if you are okay with taking the supplements, provided, it's a clean supplement which you are taking. A lot of people take fish oil supplements. I don't take any fish oil. I take krill oil, but make sure that, your fish oil is approved by IFOS. There is a standard internationally. It's called IFOS, International Fish Oil Standard. It has to be approved by that standard to be certified that, it has no toxins and, it has passed through this testing. Similarly, the krill oil, if you are taking the one I take, it's approved by ICOS. So it's called International Krill Oil Standard. So these are the things, these are the nuances you have to be familiar with, that, you are not taking anything in random. So what I'm saying that, people who are telling in general that, go for keto diet or go for, whole grain carb-based diet, one is the best over the other and vice versa, there is a very little truth to it, because it all depends on what type of genotype you are carrying, because, it may not be applicable to everybody universally. So that's why it's very important to know the genotype. Now, what if you are between, 2-3 and 3-4? Like, for instance, of course, I'm not going to have one copy of 3, just like I am 3-3, right? So we have 2 SNPs. So what if somebody is 2-3, right? So 2 is very slow clearance for the metabolism of cholesterol, and 3 is typical. So they are going to lie in between the 2. 3-4, right? 3-4, 3 is typical clearance for metabolism of cholesterol, and 4 is very fast. So they are going to lie in between somewhere. So as a rule of thumb, I would take the least, worst case. It means I'm going to assume that, 4 is the one which is going to control. So I'm going to conform my diet accordingly. So for instance, my wife is 3-4. So we are limiting her for her saturated fats. I'm making sure that, she's getting enough omega-3, and she is around 9%, because the criteria is that, you have to be between 8 to 12% of your omega-3 index in your bloodstream. So we are targeting about 9 to 10% in our bloodstream. So you have to conform your diet accordingly. Now, again, if somebody is close to insulin resistance, then you have to mitigate that thing with your low index insulin glycemic index low carb diet, right? So basically, there are foods you have to pick that they are low glycemic load foods, right? So one is the glycemic index, one is the glycemic load. So new term was coined by Harvard a few years back, that they are looking at the glycemic load. Glycemic load takes into consideration of glycemic index multiplied by the number of carbs in that food. Okay, because ultimately the carbohydrates which we eat it turns into glucose when it goes after the digestion in our bloodstream. So the body doesn't store carb in separate bags or something like that. It just turns everything into glucose, and it just stores into the energy. So remember that, when we are, our diet is moving around, or we are conforming our diet, we have to be mindful of this concept that what genotype we are carrying, and we have to work for our diet accordingly. Now, insulin resistance comes into play as well, but it's not based on the genotype, because it's based on the lifestyle that we lead. And I'm going to address in a separate vlog that how to mitigate, because I was getting close to insulin resistance. I was in between, not purely sensitive and not purely insulin resistance, but I was in between, and I turned around myself on the low side completely. So I'm very insulin sensitive now. What did I do? I'm going to share in the next vlog also, but I just wanted to give you this concept here, that this idea of eating whole grain vegetarian diet may not be suitable for everyone. It depends on what type of genotype you carry. At the same time, the high fat diet is not for everyone. It depends on what type of genotype you are carrying. Now, some of you may be thinking that, this test is not available in your country. There is a possibility that Apoe genotype test is not available in the country where you are living. How do I know that? To be honest with you, there is no, cookbook rule or something like that, what genotype you are carrying. The only thing I can think of that, you do experiment, that, you do 6 months, complex carb diet, very low on the fat side. And then, 6 months you switch to the other way around, high fat diet and low carb diet, and see the next time when you run the lipid level, your cholesterol, how it responds. If you get a high response, chances are that either you are 3-4 or 4-4. Okay. And if you don't get any response, you are, no response at all, chances are that, either you are, 2-2 or 2-3 or 2-4 to some extent, but also you are possible that you can be a 3-3, because 3-3 don't respond to the cholesterol metabolism as well. So these are the few tricks you can do by experimental, because I've done many experiments during my each lipid testing and blood work, and that's how I learn myself, based on the literature which I've been digging, and I've been applying to myself and my family. So I wanted to give you this concept here, that how Apoe genotype plays a vital role in your dietary cholesterol metabolism. Because, we have heard many times that, people say that, our liver, which is true, the way we have wired by nature, that our liver is going to produce 75 to 80% of our cholesterol, no matter what we eat. But that's how the demand is from the body, that body requires certain amount of cholesterol for the functionality, because cholesterol molecule is a life. If we don't have a cholesterol, then we would be dead. Simple as that. Because we thrive on cholesterol, and as we age, the body produces more, because our fragility goes down. It needs more cholesterol for the cell mechanism to fight against the diseases. So remember that there is a race going on in the science world, that we are trying to bring the cholesterol as low as 30 and 40, particularly LDL, and that's not good all the time, because majority of us, I said, there are few cases who are genetically predisposed for certain underlying conditions. But majority, like I was given a red flag that, I have to take the statin, but I refused. In 6 months, I turned completely my quality of the cholesterol around. And if I can do it, I think anybody can do it, but it requires strict discipline. strict discipline, and it's doable. The only thing is that you understand how science works and how is your genotype, what is your genotype, and based on that, you conform your diet based on your genotype, and you can flip the things around. So with this thought, I will leave you, and hopefully next time I'm going to lump the insulin resistance factor into it, and we'll try to paint a complete picture and connect the dots over the next 1 or 2 vlogs, that how this entire thing one can apply into the daily life to understand this thing better. And before making a decision with your healthcare professional, you are well equipped and understanding of the knowledge that how this thing works on a scientific basis. See you next time.